Does this work? Something's broke. Hello! Something's broke. Don't know what it is yet, but we'll find out. Welcome back to the Propaganda Combat Footage Show, where we make baseless claims without any proof whatsoever. We'll talk about that here in just a second. I'm Ronnie. I'll be your host. Do me a favor, tap on the like button, drop in the chat, and let me know you're here. It's Friday. Let's check in on the chat here. From Wales, UK. Hello from Portugal. Hello from South Africa. Oh, what's going on? You okay? Shoo. It's pretty crazy there. Kosovo, what's up? Yar. I don't know where that's from. Get funked. Funker. Hardly know her. North Carolina, welcome in. Colorado. Cluster. We'll be talking about it here in just a second. Happy freaking birthday. It's not my birthday. Thank you for the $5, sir. Appreciate that very much. Not my birthday, but, you know, this is the place where we make absolutely baseless claims based off of no precedent or data set whatsoever, not unlike the first topic that we're going to be talking about tonight, cluster munitions. So yesterday we released a video, just to kind of start things right out of the gate here, that I broke down the possibility and potential of Ukraine to receive cluster munitions. There's been a lot of talk of cluster munitions over the last couple months or so, going all the way back to a March letter from Republican congressman to Biden, requesting very specifically that he provide cluster munitions. So we released a video yesterday, and of course everybody wanted to ensure to remind me that there was absolutely no base to that, and it was a lie. However, cluster munitions have been announced in the most recent package to Ukraine, more specifically the 155 DPICM. Now, I also received a whole lot of heat on that video for saying DPICM, like as a word, rather than saying DPICM. We're going to watch a video. Go figure. We're going to watch a video of the subcommittee on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, where Laura Cooper, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Eastern Europe, Laura Cooper from the Pentagon, is briefing the House Foreign Affairs Committee. This comes from June 22nd. This one's actually critical. It's important because it'll help you understand what took so long for those that have been waiting for cluster munitions. We'll talk a little bit more about cluster munitions, but to really get deeper dive thoughts, that's what those deep dive videos are for. I'm going to ask that you guys go and watch that video. We think it's pretty good. Simple breakdown. There are some inaccuracies, but I'll talk about those here in just a second. Here comes that video for you now. We're actually going to start it right at the 28-minute mark, right around the 28-minute mark.
Aspects of availability, and also whether there are other systems like Storm Shadow, like the ground-launched small-diameter bomb that'll come online this fall, other systems, including UAVs, that can range the same targets. And I would be more than happy to discuss greater details on these issues in a classified setting.
I would appreciate that. Thank you. Ms. Cooper, the Russian military has been using cluster munitions with impunity in Ukraine. Yet the administration has refused to provide similar weapons, known as DPICMs, to Ukraine. I'm aware of the dangers of unexploded ordnances. However, the Ukrainians believe that their battlefield benefits outweigh the costs. And since these would be used on Ukraine's own territory, Kyiv would be incentivized to judicially limit the post-war threat to civilians. Do you think that the DPICMs would be helpful to Ukraine's counteroffensive, particularly in offsetting Russia's quantitative advantage in manpower, armor, and artillery?
Mr. Chairman, our military analysts have confirmed that DPICMs would be useful, especially.
Just a pause, because I know the subtitles make it hard, and I can't really. Here, let's turn those off for a second. Laura Cooper is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia. Kind of direct out of the Pentagon there.
Against dug-in Russian positions on the battlefield. The reason why you have not seen a move forward in providing this capability relates both to the existing congressional restrictions on the provision of DPICMs and concerns about allied unity. But from a battlefield effectiveness perspective, we do believe it would be useful.
Okay. Thank you. I now recognize Ranking.
Now that's the most pertinent, part of this. What I'll do really quick, for those of you that want to watch this whole subcommittee, it's actually really insightful. C-SPAN can be just an absolute bore, but I do have this linked for you, just like always, down in the stream description. They discuss everything from ATACMs to DPICMs, like we just talked about. A lot of ICMs, a lot of really good, insightful information from this specific subcommittee. Now, there was another one that I put in the video that we launched last evening. I launched that late last evening because rumors kind of continued to swirl about legalities of cluster munitions, which I answer in that video, about what types of cluster munitions would be possible. What we're going to do next is we're actually going to go and review the DoD release, and we're going to do that together. So we're going to type in DoD releases. Should be one of the first. Of course it's not. Let's go to Google. I always like to teach you how to fish. DoD releases. Right here. And there it is, 3 hours ago. So that video that I launched discusses some of the capabilities that could be possible being sent to Ukraine, and one of those that was mentioned was 155 millimeter DPICMs, which would theoretically, unless I'm missing something, be accompanied by the M42 or M46 submunition. The M42 and M46 submunition, which the United States calls grenades, have one distinct difference from the more modern M80, which is primarily launched via 105, and that is that it does not have a self-destruct feature. That self-destruct feature, just to pull up where the pertinent area of this is, that self-destruct feature is largely where most of those that disagree with the provision of cluster munitions would essentially be met in the middle. Now, there's one real point to be made, and that is that Ukraine ultimately would be the ones using the cluster munitions. So from being incentivized to mitigate the employment of cluster munitions in an area where it would impact civilians, one would assume that Ukraine will hold that pretty high. But just to go through the rest of these, we used to go through each of the security assistance packages each time they'd be released, and I wanted to do that again. Right out of the gate, though, we're noticing more munitions for the Patriot. You're going to notice additional ammunition for HIMARS. That's going to be GMLRS, everything from M31A1, the tungsten steel balls of super deadly shotgun, basically 180,000 tungsten steel balls, and that we'll actually see some footage of the HIMARS later tonight. But this is where, okay, my whole system just like... Let's just go full cam here for a second. My whole system just like ate shit. Stand by. And we're coming back. All right. And we're back. More Bradleys being called out in this. Strikers, mine clearing equipment. This is something that I've talked about before. The propensity or continuation of not defining exactly what mine clearing equipment means is just an irk for me. Mine clearing and the needs, the necessity of it, especially in the breaching that Ukraine is attempting to do and being successful. We're going to see the map a little bit later on. It feels as though it's an afterthought, right? I'm sure that there is a piece to this. You don't know what you don't know, but what I'd like to see is X amount of MICLICs or Y amount of APOBs. There's a transparency index that's managed by the Kiel Institute. And once upon a time, the United States was actually considered one of the more transparent when it came to the to the aid provided, specific to military arms. But that transparency index now has the United States down to about the halfway point. And it's largely because of issues like this. It's not defined. The specific dollar amount tied against the individual items is not well defined, which ultimately is what led to that delta, that 6.2 some odd billion delta, which, you know, I've talked about that before. On the one hand, you can kind of see how that would happen using the replacement cost versus its original cost, differing values of deprecated equipment. But this is what makes that transparency index managed by the Kiel Institute as a part of their Ukraine support tracker drop the United States down a few pegs, if you will. At the top of that, I want to say is Switzerland. I think they have a perfect score of 5, meaning that they have a website, they disclose the cost of everything. There are some other points and things in there. But I'd strongly recommend the Kiel Institute. I've been tweeting out about that quite a bit over the last day or so. More recovery vehicles. The Penguin UAS, that's not one that I've researched before. I have that kind of on the list to go and research. Real quick, a note here. Something from a terminology perspective to remember. UAS is essentially the entirety of the system. So a UAV is the vehicle itself, right? The drone. The UAS includes everything from the control to the drone to technically speaking, the operator where necessary. So that's the entirety of that system. Just a nuance there from UAV versus UAS. And then demolition munitions and systems for obstacle clearing. Again, one of those areas that I would love to see a little bit personally, a definition. You know, you can want, you can hope, but ultimately they're going to release what they're going to release. So I wanted to go through this, especially given that it includes DPICMs, which cluster munitions, the legalities of which are regulated by the Convention on Cluster Munitions. And like I mentioned in the video, the United States, Ukraine, Russia, and China, I don't know why I'm including China, I just find that it's relevant and pertinent, are not signatory nor party to that treaty. Now, just to give away a little bit more of that video, the difference between being a signatory versus a party is a signatory essentially handshakes and says, I won't defeat the object and purpose of this rule or of this treaty. You know, it's a handshake agreement, if you will. They're not legally bound to it. A party to a treaty means that they are legally bound to abide by it. And Article 1 of the Convention on Cluster Munitions is ultimately what ties everybody that is party to that treaty into not using cluster munitions. So, if you guys want to see a little bit more of a deep dive on cluster munitions, on those legalities, on some of the different types of DPICM, along with the ATACMs, Block 1 and Block 1A that I break down, I'd recommend going and checking that video out. We're going to pause here for a minute. I need to check in on the support. Thank you guys for it. Welcome back. It's Friday. Tommy, thanks very much for the $1.87. Max, thank you for the $10. You're the man. Thank you for keeping us up to date on a rapidly unfolding world. Yeah, things move very fast. Very fast. Mr. Hellspawn, thank you for the 5. Bobby, thank you for the 5. And Jamie, thank you for the 5. Appreciate that very much. We had a whole bunch of membership renewals. Lawrence, Norak, Bruce, Steve, Ramadi, Michael, thank you for sticking around with us. Appreciate that very much. And Grima, thank you as well. Is Ronnie wearing shorts today? Stop it. Don't ask stupid questions. Absolutely. Why would I wear pants? We're going to get started on the footage review for tonight. I don't think we're going to be able to get to a top 10. I do want to make a note. Oh, I told you guys I would point out an inaccuracy ownership on the cluster munitions video. So I try to own my mistakes. There is a mistake in the video, and actually a relevant one. DPICM, the dual purpose improved conventional munition. I erroneously, inadvertently, whatever you'd like to call it, labeled it the improvised conventional munition. I tried to put a follow-up edit as well as reply to some comments that pointed it out. We appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. Let's get the campaign map up. We're going to go to Deep State tonight. Welcome back, guys. We're at Toga for the next stream. I don't even own a Toga. Deep State's coming up now. We'll be starting down near the Kherson area. Once I get the map going. Something like 1 in 4 men have performance issues. Don't hold it against me. Here we go. Now, battles kind of continued to happen near Antonovsky. And something to keep in mind and remember is we weren't here Monday. I appreciate very much everybody's patience while I spent some time at the pool, sauntering past all the rich people tents on my way to the cheap seats. So I appreciate that day off. But we're going to be starting right here in Antonovsky, near Antonovsky. One of the last things that we talked about was Ukrainian advances that were making their way actually all the way up to about here. This first video that we're going to see is a Russian BMP getting shelled and barreling its way into a bus stop. Pretty wild video. Had a couple dismounts fall off there. And let's bring it back up. Now, in Oleshky, we've got some not safe for work stuff here. Discretion advised for this. We have Ukrainian bomb drones dropping munitions on Russians near Oleshky. Let's pull the map back up just so you can see that there. This is Oleshky. And I want to say this activity was a little bit towards the south down here, if I recall correctly. Don't hold me to that. I know it's Oleshky. Video is coming up for you guys now. In between this, we can continue to talk about Block 1 and Block 1A for the ATACMs. We can talk about the 155 millimeter DPICMs. You know, I'll be checking in on the chat as usual. Once again, discretion is advised on this video. Stream video quality has took a nosedive for me. Recommend restarting your app because nothing has changed on my side. All right, we're not going to watch that one again. Let's pull it back up. That's really all I had for you in Kherson. There were also a few other strikes, primarily some of those further away artillery strikes. I try to include some of those when it provides context and value. Both Ukraine and Russia continue to strike, especially in hotly contested areas like Kherson, like Zaporizhia. We'll see some of that from Zaporizhia, but Kherson, I really just wanted to update you guys that activity is still taking place. As far as I am tracking, there is still at least somewhat of a foothold on the left or east bank of the Dnipro. I do want to take the map and begin shifting, though. I want to get over into a little area, Burchak. This one is an area that I've not talked about in the past. Here. This is going to be one of those strikes. Now, just to pull it out a little bit further, we're now shifting further to the east towards where some of those main counteroffensive axes are taking place. What you're going to see here is actually one of those artillery strikes. More specifically, this is Ukrainian artillery targeting a Russian Tor. Video's coming up for you guys now. Keeping the sound off for that. That was cool. Watch that hit one more time. Oop. I guess it happens earlier in the video than I thought. And no, it did not successfully evade the strike and continue to fire. That is sympathetic fire from that munition. All right, let's bring it up. That's what I had from Burchak. Now we're going to be shifting here towards Zherebyanki. Now I need to make a discretion advised note. Some of the stuff we're going to see tonight is on the very extreme edge of what we show, right? The realities, the brutality, if you will. So as we get there, of course, for each of the individual videos, I will call those out. But I want to note early on in the stream, like now, that tonight is going to be one of those more not safe for work, I don't know what else to call it, nights, where discretion is very much so advised. This actually would be a great example of that. Now, this is near Zherebyanki. As Ukrainians are attempting to take Zherebyanki, they are, of course, going to be assaulting dug-in positions, circling back to DPICMs and cluster munitions. Theoretically, that's the capability that would be provided to help dislodge Russians in those trench positions. What you're going to see here are Ukrainians that are attempting to take a trench system near Zherebyanki that begin to receive indirect fire. And ultimately, it results in multiple casualties. Discretion advised. Now you'll see Ukrainians making their way to, in their mind, what the relative safety of the trench line. These are Ukrainians. Bukim 40. Cluster munitions, if used correctly, can clear trenches without the need to spend Ukrainian lives. Yes. There's that indirect that begins hitting. The trench was mined. Interesting. Because to me that looks like indirect. So again, this is in Zherebyanki, Zaporizhzhia, kind of the far left edge of what is known to be the counteroffensive area in Zaporizhzhia. Let's bring it up, because we'll be shifting to the right towards Robotyne. Here's where we just were. Zherebyanki is a pretty small settlement there. But we'll be shifting to the right towards Robotyne and that Tokmak axis, if you will. But before we get down here, first, we're going to stay up top near Orikhiv. Now, in Orikhiv, according to Russian sources, they hit a ammunition storage facility. Not a whole lot of fidelity on this, but something got hit.
Там в центре сегодня вообще делать нехуй. Це штучки дві, наверное. Ну оце ж каби, тільки ж.
Які капи, бля, капи одна, нахуй, а це що?
Може 2 штуки
Ти подиви, яка площадь, вообще, блядь, зрива.
Може 2 штуки ото, блядь.
Може 2 штуки вместе летіло. Єбать, оце б я якраз би щас там їхав.
Та ти що, в центрі там не хотіли, ти що, блядь. З такими движеннями.
Сюди не поїдеш, тому що тут, блядь, воронка, блядь, переорана, блядь.
Отак Оріхові живе, да?
Як я кофе вовремя захотів побити. Побачив, що Серега.
Отак. То лі каби, то лі хер його знає.
Let's bring it up. Now, also, as we move further down towards Robotyne, not quite that far just yet, this is likely footage that's a little bit dated. I'll show you on the map, because it takes place right in here-ish. We're going to see more contextual type footage of Ukrainian troops as they're moving past previously destroyed Leopards. Now, what I wanted to point out on these, because again, we get the question a lot, why isn't Ukraine using demining capabilities? And there's ample evidence that they are trying to. What ends up happening is those vehicles that are at the front, that are on the forward edge of these, assaults, probing assaults, whatever you'd like to call them, those vehicles are very vulnerable because mine clearing is not a fast job. But that's why I wanted to show this to you, is it's more contextual type footage. It shows them moving in and around those previously known, from weeks ago, Leopard vehicles. Here you are. See the mine clearing equipment on the front of them. Lighthouse phenomenon. We see the mines that get stepped on, not the ones that get cleared. Yeah, it's a great point. And it kind of echoes some things that I've talked about before. We're going to see things, and things are going to go viral in their extremities, right? So if you imagine what goes viral on social media, not the norm, right, which are that some of this mine clearance equipment is probably working and doing exactly what it's supposed to. Not unlike political takes or rhetoric, opinions, things in their extremities are what is going to get shared, and word of mouth is going to help it spread. Did you see what Joe Smith said on Twitter? That's what's going to go viral. The things that aren't going to go viral, generally speaking, there's always an exception to the rule, are just the norms. And the norm is very likely, and we have video of it on the site, of some of this mine clearance equipment that has been repaired and put back out to the front, just doing its job, which is clearing mines. Let's move. We're still on that Robotyne axis, though. This is starting to get a little bit closer to Robotyne as we move down this highway here. You're going to see footage of Russian infantry. I'm gonna change the layers here to satellite. That's just better on the eyes. Thanks. All right, so much better. As we move further towards Robotyne, we'll see Russian infantry being shelled on the approaches. Coming up for you guys now. Gotta turn that off. I think this one would constitute a discretion advised. Now, what's interesting with this is this appears to be some form of a burst munition. You can see the spread as it impacts. Let's come back up. I need to check in on the sport because there's a couple questions that actually I think are really relevant. First, Calico Jack, thanks for the 1313. It only makes sense with the changeover of trenches, they'd start booby trapping, maybe with remote detonators. That's apparently been happening, all along. We had some footage of, what was reported to be a claymore that had a kind of a booby trapped. What's the word I'm looking for? Essentially, when you render a claymore safe, the fuse is sticking out of the top. You unscrew it and pull that out. But built into it was some type of a booby trap, wherein when the EOD technician would pull that, it would detonate the claymore. So we've seen footage of stuff like that. Obviously it's kind of in a silo, if you will. The point I think I'm trying to make with that is it was reported to be a Russian booby trap. Much more than that, I can't really answer. But there are at least reports of things like that happening, and it's feasible to believe that stuff like that would happen. John, thank you for the $20. Wow. Max, thank you for the 376. What's your background? My background is Army Intelligence, 2 deployments to Afghanistan. I have an entire list of my background, all of my deployments, the agencies I supported on my personal website. London, thank you for the $4.99. Ronnie, old boy, you're doing something important. We all are, being here and just trying to stay in tune with what war truly looks like. We are community driven top to bottom. I had that conversation with somebody today. When you guys see things out in the wild that you think are relevant and pertinent, important for us to archive on the app and on the website, tag us in it. We're community driven. The Funker 530 community will always be infinitely larger than the amount of team members that are here blogging and writing and trying to document this stuff. London Water, thank you for the 5 before that. Are these clusters being sent going to be as helpful as they seem like they might? Nothing is going to be the single catalyst that turns the tides. HIMARS had a very massive effect on the landscape of the fight. Cluster munitions could very much so have a similar impact. They provide a capability that Ukraine just does not have, that Russia has used and has had for quite some time. I mean, just over the last 3 streams, I've continued to show you guys Russian use of cluster munitions, not holding that against them. They are not signatory nor party to the Convention on Cluster Munitions. Ukraine just does not have that capability of wide area terrain denial, something that would typically take 5, 6, 7 HIMARS GMLRS is really just one round of 155 millimeter DPICM. And you're covering a very large area with both anti-armor, technically, there's a small shape charge, and anti-personnel capability. The shells, and this is all covered in that video that I launched yesterday, the shells of these small submunitions of the M42 and M46 are perforated, serrated, so that when the explosive charge goes off, that becomes primary fragmentation. Then you add in secondary fragmentation, rock, wood, bone. It'd be pretty devastating. The Iraqis in Desert Storm called it steel rain, and the effect was said to be devastating. Michael, thank you very much for the $10. As always, love the show. What happened to Bayraktar? It became copyright. So when we play that, they block the stream. To each their own. So we no longer play the Bayraktar song. And Max, thank you. Well, Max, thanks again for the 10. Appreciate that very much. Tommy, thank you for the $1.87. Let's continue to move, though. We're going to move to Novodanilivka, which is just to... Here, stand by. Let me just get it pulled up. We're actually not moving at all. Sorry about that. We're going to stay right near Novodanilivka. You're going to see BM-21 grad strikes on Ukrainian positions. If this is the video I'm thinking it is, it's actually a very interesting one. It's thermal footage, and it gives you some semblance of an idea of what the spread of a BM-21 grad is. You hear a lot about grad being used. You see a lot of the videos, this old-ass, rickety-looking truck that's firing rockets off the back of it. This helps you get an understanding of kind of the capability there. Now, Grad is also primarily what Russia launches its ground-based cluster munitions from. But here comes the video. Something to note, there is a Ukrainian vehicle in this video. I'll point it out, and somewhere along the line, even though it doesn't look like it gets hit, it does explode. So something to be said about fragmentation. So this is that Ukrainian vehicle. It's right here. Right at the tip of this road. You see the spread on that Grad, and there goes that Ukrainian vehicle. See if we can bring that back. Now, there's a possibility that that vehicle could be already smoking or damaged. You know, there's a little bit of kind of like an aberration here that could be smoke. So it could already be damaged and just ends up cooking off. Not sure. All right, let's bring it up. Something that I point out and I note in the video, in the cluster munitions video, is that historically speaking, the West et al. Has provided very point fire capabilities, very, very heavy focus on precision, you know, point target. If you want to hit it, you'll be able to. The CEPs of some of the things, the circular errors probable. The accuracy is in some cases within 5 meters from miles and miles and miles away. It's scary stuff. One of those capabilities that has been provided is bonus, or the smart round. This next video is going to be, I would consider one of the most not safe for work that we have. Discretion really heavily advised on this. You're going to see a Russian T-90M get hit by the bonus round. It's distinctive, and I'll point out what specifically identifies this video as bonus. But what ends up happening afterwards is the internals to the T-90M catch on fire, and only one of the presumed 3 that would be inside is able to climb out. He also climbs out in pretty poor shape. Video's coming up, discretion advised. This takes place south of Robotyne. First, direct your attention to the left part of the screen here. You're going to see the initial detonation before the shape charge from the bonus round is projected down onto the tank. So right now in this burning hatch is probably the tank commander. Now there is a longer version of this video. I'm done watching this guy crawl. There is a longer version of that video that shows the tank eventually get engulfed. For some reason, I just wasn't able to find it. I saw it earlier in the week, but when it came time for me to compile the stream, this is the only version that I could find. So if you guys happen to find that longer version, getting that documented as ultimately the effectiveness of the bonus on the T-90M, tag me in it, and we'll see if it's something we could post to the website. So that was, once again, a T-90M being hit by the bonus or the smart round, which is fired from 155 millimeter. One of those very specific point target type systems. All right, let's shift on our map here. To Chumatsky. We're not shifting far. So we were just over here, just to the south of Robotyne. We're going to be moving just to the right. here. More of those conditioning or shaping fires, this time from HIMARS. This is likely to be M31A1, 180,000. I continue to say that purposefully, right? Because 180,000 BB-sized tungsten steel balls moving as fast as they are moving is devastating. But this specifically is targeting Russian artillery. You see the spread on those. Now, the second round, if I recall correctly, doesn't look as much like... it could still very well be HIMARS, but you don't see this spread, the same spread that you saw in the first round. Yep, yeah, you do. I lied to you. All right, let's bring it up. So that's what I had for you guys. I lost my place in my own script from Chumatsky. We're going to shift a little bit further to the right to another area where there has been quite a bit of ground taken by Ukraine over the last week. Coming up for you now. We're going to be starting up here near Velika Novosilka. I think I'm doing better tonight than normal on the pronunciation, but, you know, hey. The strike that you're going to see here is a Russian strike. The Russian 40th Marines striking what Google says is a school, what Russians claim is a drone operator facility. They say that there were UAV or drone operators here. Keeping that sound off. Now, there's every likelihood that more or less it's both, right? So at one time it was probably a school. It doesn't look like this area has, you know, too much school going on. And now is likely being used to fly drones. It's also not very far from the front. So from a range perspective, we can look at that really quick. So just draw a basic line here. Give me a second. I'll pull things back up. Looking at about 8 kilometers. Generally speaking, 8 to 9 kilometers to the front. All right. We're going to shift down just a little bit into Makarivka. And actually, a little bit further to Staromayorsk. A Russian tank is going to get hit in this next video by a suicide drone. Now, initially, it doesn't appear as though it does any damage, but shortly following, the crew dismounts and a fire can be seen on the vehicle. It turned around to unask that location. Moving south So it turned around to move south, just to orient you. You see that fire right here behind the turret. And the crew is dismounting now. One more time on that hit. Okay. Let's bring it up. I know there are always questions as to the effectiveness of those small FPV drones, some of which we've seen equipped with PG-7s that would normally be fired from, an RPG. This is kind of evidence of their effectiveness. We continue to see that they can very much so be effective. Now, to the west of that area, near Rivnopil, here, this is some of that additional ground that's been taken just to orient you to the colors. I do that every so often. Red, obviously, is Russian-held ground. This gray area is kind of contested / unknown. Blue is anything that has been recovered by territory that's been recovered by Ukraine in the last 2 weeks. And green is anything that was recovered by Ukraine prior to 2 weeks. So as we pull out of the map here, you can see any of the areas that are green were previously Ukrainian ground held by Russians. So just to come back into it, we're in Rivnopil. It's going to be Ukrainian shelling Russian infantry fighting vehicles. And then we're going to see immediate follow-up video of the same area. Ukrainians shelling a Russian mortar team. Coming up. I can see if there's a topographic layer. Bremner's Ghost. Glaucoma will answer that question in just a moment once we come up out of the footage. Rivnopil is liberated? Yeah, according to the map and to geolocated footage, yes. When I say this is taking place in Rivnopil, what I'm really providing is just a general location. This could be, forward on the line. It could be near the city itself, just trying to provide a little bit more fidelity on where it's taking place rather than a precise, MGRS coordinate for you. Get my mouse out of the way. All right, let's bring it up. We've already watched this through once. And just to answer Field Glaucoma's question, this shirt is from Savtac, Savage Tacticians. I wore their green one last week, the week prior. Big fan. That mortar video, Ukrainians hitting Russian mortar positions. Same area. Corral, is this fire support for advancing infantry or just harassment? Probably a little bit of both. That specific strike would be hard to call without being there. Shaping fires is what I typically call it, because whether you're harassing or you're preparing for an advance, it's still going to be shaping. Tom, that's actually something that's interesting. Will on our team is a mortarman. And when I first watched this, I noted the same thing. The angle of that tube is either pointing away from me or very, very vertical, which would indicate pretty high angle fire, and probably means that they're trying to hit something close. And I meant to ask Will about that. Spartan, thank you very much for the $5. Appreciate that very much. John Doe, thanks again for the 20. Rob, thank you for the 5 months. Crab Cat, thank you for the $10. Happy birthday, Ron. Oh, yeah, and happy Friday, too. Thanks, man. It's not my birthday, though, but I do appreciate you very much. Thanks for the 10. P-Dub, thanks for hitting the member button. Welcome. Appreciate that. Let's move forward. We're going to shift. I'm not going to try. Novo Mykhailev. Novo Mykhailev. That's where we're going. Here we go. That's where we're going. Novo Mykhailovka. Now, I have a question for you guys. And I actually would like to do this in a poll because I see both sides of this. Is Russian use of, regardless if it's a T-55 or an MTLB, Russian use of VBIEDs desperation or creativity? All my screens just jacked up again. I'm not sure why this continues to happen. So go ahead and answer that poll, because that's the next video we're going to see. We're going to see another vehicle-borne IED being used by Russia. In this instance, it's going to specifically be a MTLB near Novo Mykhailovka. Video's coming up for you now. Something you'll note is we actually see the onboard personnel dismount. Elvis in Ukraine, please do reach out. Thank you for the 20. Now, that MTLB is just going to continue moving towards Ukrainian positions. Sorry for the quality, guys. There's two challenges with quality that I'll talk about once we come back up out of this view. But they're continuing to try to hit it. And it's going to eventually detonate right in the tree line. Now, the quality challenges, let's talk about those for a second. So the quality challenges that we run into, first and foremost, are going to be, under most circumstances, we're not getting this video from a primary source. For those that aren't or don't work in the intelligence field, primary source means that that's the person that filmed it. That's the person that was there. Then you have secondary sources. You have primary sources, ideally where we would get our footage from. In the combat footage realm, that's just not really feasible or possible, right? Every so often, we're able to find one. If the primary source has a Telegram, for example, we're going to see some footage tonight that we pulled direct out of Telegram. We're able to pull those. But under a lot of circumstances, what's going to end up at the first challenge is it will have been uploaded and downloaded and compressed, just thrown up and down all over the internet before we find it in certain circumstances. Then we have the additional challenge of this stream. This stream is a 1440p stream, right? So it is 1440p on my screen, but we're already looking at a resolution compromised video. Then it gets blown up to 1440p. Some folks, if I'm not mistaken, watch this on a big screen, which is first and foremost super humbling. Like, that's wild to me. That's going to just exacerbate the problem. So I see a lot of comments, questions. Can't you make the quality better? No, I can't. If we're just trying to compile as much of this data as we can. All right, we're going to shift off of that, but there you have it. That is fourth VBID, vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. You had maybe third or fourth in that same area, generally speaking. Yeah. Now Pervomaisk. Let's pull that up on the map. We're going to be shifting. Not far. Let's pull the map back up. So this is where we're headed. Right up in this area. And I don't know whether I would call this one not safe for work. It's actually probably closer to like a nudity thing. Maybe. What we're going to see is presumably the aftermath of a strike. 3 Russians jump out of tanks, and one of them is bare-assed. What's potentially happening here is maybe his clothes were on fire. And I don't know if they dismounted this tank or if they're just dismounts that are moving past this tank. But they also fall in an interesting way. I don't know if they're receiving contact here. I'm not certain. I know that this is where it takes place. In Pervomaisk. I don't know. I don't know how else to have described that video either. Seems like 73% of you believe that the use of VBIEDs by Russia is desperation. Okay. 784 votes, 786 votes, 787. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. All right. Time to move into Makivka. DC Williams for $100, sir. That is a lot of dollars. Love that shirt and welcome back. Hope you and the family enjoyed the time off we did. Thank you very much. I saw the Cluster Munitions roll out Thursday. That was last night. Yep. Thanks, Ron. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Wow. Once again, don't have a whole lot of words for, everybody's first and foremost just being here, hanging out with us. When you guys send in a few dollars, that generosity is not necessary. The stream is free. But thank you for it. I wish I had a better way to say that. Shifting back to our map. And we're going to be moving to Makivka. That's going to be to the north of Donetsk. Here? Oh, northeast-ish. It's going to be a big boom. Big bada boom. Big bada boom. Ukraine, excuse me, hit a, what appears to be a Russian grad ammo dump. It's going to start with aftermath, and then it's going to go into the strike itself. Massive explosion inside of Makivka. There is a hospital somewhere around 400 or 500 meters to the east, I want to say, of this site. And some of these rockets that were being stored there, if I'm not mistaken, do end up destroying some of the windows in that hospital. But the area, the specific strike itself, was supposedly an abandoned construction site that was being used by Russia to store these rockets. Massive bada boom coming up here. It is, I don't know whether this is notable or not. Maybe it's just interesting. This took place on July 4th. And there's that sympathetic detonation. Something that's notable here is it wasn't just rockets, right? So if you look, pay attention here. So what was also being stored here is what's known as 9M22S, which is a magnesium-based, often confused with phosphorus munition that Russia has used pretty regularly. It's thermite. So Ukraine was able to destroy a stockpile of that munition as well. It is magnesium. All right, let's bring it up. All right. We're going to move towards Bakhmut for this next one. It's going to be just a short trip to the north. We'll be focused primarily in the south here first, and then we'll see a little bit of footage from up here on the northern flank of Bakhmut. We're starting down here in Ozaryanivka. I think I got that. We're going to see footage of the 3rd Assault Brigade shelling Russians that apparently, according to the original source, were attempting an assault. See, as we get closer to the original source, to the primary source, the video footage, goodness, I'm like an old man. The footage gets higher and higher quality. Here you are. Has there been any leaflets dropped in this conflict? In fact, yes. We watched video of leaflets being dropped 2 or 3 streams ago. The clips have audio, but under most circumstances, operator, it's like copywritten music, which ultimately would step on the stream. I should have given you a discretion advised on this one. I forgot to note it in my script. Apologies for that. Are these Russians? Correct. Let's bring it up. So again, that was the 3rd Assault Brigade, or footage released by the 3rd Assault Brigade, shelling Russian positions in Ozaryanivka. I think I got that right that time. Close enough. Maybe. The next, though, we'll see more from the 3rd as they continue their advance towards Klishivka, just to the north here. Now, there's actually, the 3rd is one of those units that continues to publish quite a bit of footage. For example, there's quite a bit of footage that takes place inside this small salient that you have here. A salient is when there's a protrusion in the forward line that is surrounded on 3 sides. But it's more of that footage that's from really far away. The footage that we're about to watch is very up close. We'll put it that way. And again, this is the 3rd Assault Brigade as they continue to advance towards Klishivka. Discretion potentially advised on this one. I don't have it noted again, but the last video, forgetting to put that note in my video list has me wondering.
Блять! Сука, нахуй! Привет.
Как обстановка?
Под обстрелами подходим под гриб, как принял.
Плюс, очень осторожно, максимально осторожно, парни.
Плюс. Здорово. Здорово, мужчина. Здорово. Де? Вижу. Противопехотный аккуратно. Давай. Сейчас гэпочку туда им. Беттер пошел. Гранатомет вот вижу.
All right. We've got more from the 3rd, though, as they start to clear those trenches. The majority of these trenches, and I've seen this footage a couple times. I've seen parts of this footage. I had yet to find anybody that had posted the full version of it without the beginning context. You'll understand why, I think. But the majority of this, it appears as though they're clearing already cleared positions or positions that Russia has already left from. Towards the end, they do end up capturing Russian POWs. This is about a 3-minute and 30-second video.
Все на своем пути. Ай, я тебе пегал. Delícia, delícia, assim o você me mata. Ai, se eu te pego. Ai, ai, se eu te pego.
Десант, бля, вперед, 10 секунд! Сука!
Now, I kind of want to just harp on something for a second. The dismount here is awesome. Immediately coming online and gain fire superiority. Watch it again.
Галичина! Встань за дерево чуть-чуть! Вперед, газ, давай!
Я гранату кину.
Давай!
Обходим справа і слева.
Дальше!
Братан, дальше. Ну така хуйня. Огонь дальше. Хуйня якась, давай.
Прикрывай!
Рації така хуйня.
Есть! Но выключено.
Давай. Що ще?
Братан, там дымно, ще ніхуя не видно.
Гори назад.
Залазь туда!
Подвинься.
Вас взяла в плен 3-я окрема штурмова бригада. 2-й штурмовий батальйон, 2-та штурмова рота, 2-й штурмовий взвод.
Взвод дацик.
Взвод Дацика. 10 птиконы. И вас никто не будет ни бить, ни калечить, ни резать. Если вы ранены, вам оказывают медицинскую помощь. Все с вами будет хорошо. Кушайте, парни, кушайте.
Это нормальные сникерсы.
Они не отравлены, не бойтесь.
Саме хуже могло случитися, що случилось. Ну я що, похож на петчика, їбать? Больно? Просто робіть те, що кажуть, і кажіть правду, поняли? Типу? Повірте, воно все перевіряється, нахуй. Якщо ви пиздите, ви ще нам упрощаєте роботу, щоб ми не вбивали вас, а просто заходили, брали в плен, нахуй.
Let's come back up. A little bit further up the forward line on that southern Bakhmut, excuse me, on that southern flank, if you will. It used to be southwest. At this point, it's more or less immediately south. We have footage of Ukrainians on the receiving end of Russian artillery. Discretion's advised on this one. This is one of those that I tweeted out a little bit earlier today. Hadn't seen anybody post it, so we put it out on our Twitter. I give you the discretion here. We are going to be viewing this from a drone that's pulled back a little bit, but it's pretty clear that Ukraine takes some casualties in this one. Coming up for you now. Where did that take place, the last vid? To the south of Bakhmut, near Klishivka. These are Ukrainian positions, just to reiterate that, taking indirect fire from Russia. Randy, please do not blast music suddenly. That wasn't me. That was the footage. I tried to turn it off quickly. It caught me in the ears as well. We both suffered through that one. All right, let's bring it up. Need to check the support. And, once again, thank you guys very much for it. Selsworth, thank you for the 10. Thank you for striving to present an accurate impression of war in general and the war in Ukraine in particular. That's all we're trying to do, is present as much video as we're able to compile throughout the week. We're obviously not going to catch all of it, but we try and, just show what's happening. Right, I do my very best to not dive too far down into personal opinion. If you'd like my personal opinion, I share a lot more of that over on the other stream, which we'll be following this stream up with. The stream will automatically redirect you over there. So I do my best, not as much as possible, to really just show the footage. That also allows us to stick to the footage a little bit more, just pack as much of this footage into, one show as possible, because there's so much of it. I saw a little bit of a discussion and back and forth as to whether or not this is the most documented war. In my opinion, from a video perspective, there's more footage of this war than any other ever, including the global war on terror. The Syrian civil war starts to come somewhat close, but the prevalence of cell phones with cameras on them being in the hands, in pockets, with the quality that we have now, the resolution, I don't think that there's ever been another war like this. Even taking that a step further, this is the largest war that Eastern Europe has seen since World War II. So not only do you have what is effectively a peer or near-peer conflict, you also have extremely high-resolution imagery, video of that war. Three Gun Lou, thank you for the $10. CC, thank you for the 5. Been watching Funker since 2012. Keep up the amazing work. Happy birthday, Ronnie. Thank you very much. Sniper Ninja for 350. DC, thank you again for the 100. Jacques, what is going on with my screens? This screen goes black, and it shifts all my stuff over to here. And then here in a second, it's going to shift everything back over to the main screen. And it keeps doing that to me. And I don't know why. So now I got to pull this over here. We're gonna drive on. We're gonna move up to Zherebyanki, to the forest. We're gonna start to get pretty close towards Crimea. Now, once we get up there, that's where some heavy footage. We're gonna have some pretty heavy footage up near the Crimean area. But here's where we're headed to: the forest near Zherebyanki. We're going to see footage here of Ukrainians repelling a Russian assault. Presumably recorded by this. Some of the majority of the dismounted troops that you'll see here are going to be Russian. Make sure I've got the highest quality I can. Yeah, we'll do that right after we watch this one, Matt. Where in Ukraine are we? We are in the east. Near Severodonetsk. Starting to get close to Crimea. I believe this would be Luhansk. Not sure why the bar won't go away. Yep, wrong button. Sorry. There it goes. These are Russians, correct? Yes. You see them assaulting forward. In a moment, you'll see them unass that location and go back the other way. I don't have a great translation for this, but this is a POW that was captured during that.
Какая часть, где служишь?
He is Russian.
Ну, так называй номер, блядь, что танковый нахуй? 80-я?
It's obviously sped up.
Понял. Ты зэк? За что сидел? Где жили? Да, да. Тут, здесь конкретно.
Let's bring it up. All right. Now let's move into Crimea. I'll show you guys on a pulled out map where we are in Ukraine. What I typically do is I follow from down near Kherson here. So this being Ukraine. From down near Kherson to the east, then to the north along the forward line. That last video that we just watched took place probably somewhere in this forested area. But now we're going to be headed up towards Crimea. Somewhere along the forward line of troops around Crimea. This is more more commonly referred to as the Crimea-Svatova line. Svatova here. Crimea there. The very first of these videos. Stop it, stop it, stop it. It's going to be Ukrainians hitting Russian armor. Coming up now. Don't have a translation, so we're going to keep that off. And it actually looks to me, based on the way that vehicle bounces up, that vehicle hit a mine. But it is Russian armor. And these guys talking to each other. Don't have a translation.
Авіація, але артилерія вже у них не так працює.
We'll bring it back up. This next one is going to be extremely difficult, or maybe extremely difficult to watch. Discretion is advised here. This reportedly takes place somewhere in that forested area near Kherson. What you're going to see here, video is going to start, and I'm going to tell you everything that happens ahead of time. Sometimes I don't do that, but with this one, I just want to kind of give you a heads up. It's going to start with Ukrainians evacuating a wounded Ukrainian. He's on a stretcher. He's bleeding pretty profusely. It's going to quickly switch to a GoPro camera. Now, on that GoPro camera, you're going to see a Ukrainian assault team moving onto or towards their objective. And what ends up happening is they immediately start to take casualties. There's a possibility that there could have been some blue on blue in this. It's really, I'm kind of on the fence with that one. But we will end up seeing, and discretion heavily advised on this one, we will end up seeing the demise of our cameraman on this one. So I wanted to kind of walk you guys through what happens in this footage before we watched it. It's coming up for you now. Once again, discretion advised. These are Ukrainians. It takes place somewhere in the forests, reportedly, near Kherson.
Так, давай трубу зніму, щоб ти не... Шум, зараз зніму трубу.
Смотри, ты перебегаешь, цепляешься за дерево, крайне выбираешься.
Крайне слева?
В любое.
Ага.
Ближе туда. И так всех пока до основания. И так перемещаемся. Правильно, иди за зором. Він перескочив, заняв, ты следующий. Ты тоже чекаешь, так, блядь. Продвигаемся сразу.
Триста!
All right, let's bring it up. It's about the end of that video. So at the very end there, what you see is the demise of the cameraman. Okay. This next one. Once again, discretion advised here. Somewhere on that Kherson-Svatova line. And there has been discussion of heavy Russian advances. Near Kherson, there was an area further up towards Svatova, and I'm drawing a blank on specifically where, but this has been a heavy area for fighting over the last week or so. But what you're going to see here is reportedly VDV assaulting a Ukrainian-held trench. Multiple Ukrainian casualties are going to be visible. Discretion advised on it. It's coming up for you now. Keeping the sound off, though. Now, if you look closely in this, sorry to startle you as we're watching this, you'll see the red tape around the arms of some of them. What is red tape? Well, historically, Russia, from an IFF perspective, has used white and red to designate Russian troops. Ukraine has used everything from yellow to blue to green. Now, between the colors, if there's an individual significance, it's not one that I'm tracking. I do think that I have read that at some point. It's just not something that I retained. You'll see 2 Ukrainians surrender here. This is reportedly the aftermath. All right, we're going to pull it up. And we're going to shift our map a little bit. So the map's going to shift to the immediate east of Novoselivsky. Novoselivska? Novoseliv. I'll just pull it up for you. How about that? We're still in Luhansk, though. This is where we are. Kuzemivka. Kuzemivka. We're going to see a team of Russians. This actually takes place right here. Right exactly here. We're going to see about a platoon-sized element of Russians that take contact, or excuse me, take indirect and unask that location. Here we are. Just get out of the impact area.
До всіх небайдужих людей, які знають мене та підтримують, а також підтримують наш підрозділ
No
аеророзвідки.
idea what he's saying.
Ми хочемо розпочати мега-крутий збір на 50 дронів камікадзе, які будуть нищити русню швидко, точно та головне.
Looks to me like he's asking for money for drones.
Правно. Сума не маленька, збір доволі таки потрібно закрити швидко, тому ми сподіваємось на вашу дуже активну підтримку, оскільки потрібно нищити ворога вже і зараз. Усі деталі ви знайдете в описі під цим відео.
We're going to bring it up. We're going to shift into kind of a section of the stream that I call the unknown Ukraine footage. I don't have great geolocation for this stuff. It wasn't readily available when I prepared the stream. I think there's some pretty heavy stuff that we're going to see here. The very first one is actually going to be one of those that's kind of heavy. You're going to see a couple pieces of Russian armor hitting mines and more. I don't know exactly where this takes place in Ukraine, but the video is coming up for you now. Sorry. Let me start it from the very beginning. All right. The next one that we have here in this kind of unknown, somewhere in Ukraine area, is actually an MRAP. So a Max Pro that gets hit by probably some form of a recoilless rifle. Cornet we would probably be able to see more of the projectile with a Cornet. It moves slow, it hits pretty hard. A recoilless rifle is going to have a little bit more velocity on it. That's probably what hits here. Not sure which, but the MRAP gets absolutely slapped. Something that's notable about MRAPs, mine-resistant, ambush-protected, is they are primarily designed to mitigate threats from below. Right? You'll see and hear of Ukrainians surviving relatively often mine strikes, really heavy mine strikes. Those Soviet-era anti-tank mines. The cab area, going to be a bit less protected from things like that. All right. This next one's also going to be, to a certain extent, not safe for work. Not really to a certain extent. It just is. Discretion advised on this one. You're going to see a Russian element move from cover here and immediately take contact. You'll see, if you look close enough, you'll see small arms start to hit their position. So it's some form of an ambush. They take cover, some of which might have been hit here. But then what is likely maybe an SPG, SPG-9, hits two of them directly. So discretion advised on this one. Don't know exactly where this takes place in Ukraine. There could very well be geo coordinates out there for this. They just weren't readily available to me when I prepped the stream tonight. Discretion advised. Let me make sure that's the best quality I've got. So they're actually taking small arms, and if you look quickly, right there, you blink and you'll miss it. It's going to fly across your screen here. You'll see direct fire of some kind. These are Russians. They took contact. They all hit the deck. All right. Just checking in on the chat. Let's move forward, though. Now, we're starting to get towards the last two videos that I have for you guys tonight. This one, I'm about to call out one of our own. I'm going to call Will out. For those that aren't familiar, Will went to Ukraine last year, August of last year. So almost a year ago. Landscape's very different. But I didn't start seeing videos like this until after Will was in Ukraine. And I don't know if that's coincidence, but I'd like to just note it. I'd like it noted that this kind of stuff didn't start happening until after Will was there. Take it for what it's worth. It's up to you guys.
Копье справедливости. Копье справедливости. Копье справедливости. Копье справедливости.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this guy says something like spear of, if I recall correctly, justice, something like that. Will, I'm gonna need you to explain this, bro. Again, it just might be coincidence, but this clearly takes place after Will was in Ukraine. Just saying. Guys, I got one more video for you. You know kind of how things go with the one more video. That's going to be it for tonight. There is that one more video, and it's kind of a reminder to not be an absolute fucking idiot at the range. But I'm out of here. This will be the last one that I'll leave you with. And for those that stick around to the very end of the stream, it'll auto-redirect you over to the other stream, or we'll kick back. We'll have a beer, try and raise a little bit of money for veterans. Thanks for being here. Thank you very much for all the support. Steven, thank you for the $20. Baby Draco for the 10. We appreciate you very much. Sellsworth, thank you again for the $10. Good night. We'll see you on Monday, right back here, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard, if I don't see you over on the other stream for more of the combat footage show. Stay informed. I bet you that dude's former military. He almost yanked that drumstick up by his neck. You see it? You see it? Good night. We love you.